All right, so Lil Durk's lawyers tried to get him out of custody on bond, but it looks like he's going to be in custody pending his trial. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I want to welcome you back to my channel if you've watched my videos before. But if you don't know me, my name is Jamahl Kersey. I am a criminal defense attorney, and I've been practicing law for over 15 years. And on this channel, we break down legal concepts so you're in the know. And so when you're charged federally, eventually you're going to have what's called a detention hearing. And what the purpose of a detention hearing is for the judge to determine whether you're going to be released on bond and under what conditions. In some situations, you can be released on your own recognizance, which means that there's no financial obligation to you. It's just you have to appear based on your word, right? You're giving your word that you will come to court. Generally speaking, being released on your own recognizance means that you have no criminal history and the charges that are against you aren't really that serious. But the more serious the charges, the higher your bond is going to be, or in some instances, there's going to be no bond. And that's what we have here. There's obviously a lot of hope that goes into a detention hearing, right? You know, a person may have been in custody, whether it's a few days or a few months, and they're really itching to get out, right? You want to see your girl. You want to be able to kiss your kids. You want to be able to get back to work to provide for your family. You want to be able to do just whatever it is that you want to do, like watch YouTube videos all day if you want to. Like, you have been detained, you're in jail, you've lost your freedom, and obviously you want to be able to get out. But in this case, Lil Durk, we know he's being charged with ordering the murder of Georgia rapper Quando Rondo. And we know that when the hit was being carried out, Quando Rondo wasn't actually hit. It was his cousin who was hit, was actually killed. And this happened near the Beverly Center Mall in LA back in 2022. And you know, Lil Durk at this point, he's pled not guilty. He's denied all the allegations, and he enjoys the presumption of innocence, right? So he is absolutely innocent unless and until he's proven guilty. But the difficult thing is, even though he enjoys the presumption of innocence, he has been ordered detained pending trial. And so, you know, let's talk about what the two primary things are that the judge is looking at in deciding bail. And we've talked about this in other videos in the past, but ultimately, it's danger to the community and flight risk, right? So let's start with flight risk. And when it comes to flight risk, it's the court's concern as to whether you're going to come back to court on the days that the judge orders you to come back, right? And so one of the things that is analyzed are a person's ties to the jurisdiction. Now, Lil Durk is from Chicago, and this incident occurred in the Central District of California in LA. And, you know, Lil Durk doesn't have any ties to LA. And generally speaking, you'd like to have ties to the jurisdiction in which you're being charged, because that's going to increase the likelihood of you showing up to court, right? So if you were born in LA, you've got family in LA, you work in LA, then, you know, you're not going anywhere. You're going to go to court, right? But if you're from, you know, out of the district, right? You know, if you're from Northern California, or especially if you're out of state, right? Chicago, New York, then the chances of you coming back to LA for court, you know, it lessens. But the more important thing is his exposure, right? Lil Durk is facing potentially the rest of his life in prison, or even possibly the death penalty. And so with the possibility of having to be in prison for the rest of his life or being put to death, then if the judge lets him out of custody, then chances are high that he's going to flee the jurisdiction and never come back. So that's going to be a concern for the judge. And, you know, in order to try and combat this, this presumption that he's not going to show back up to court, his lawyers offered a bond that was secured by $2.3 million in equity in two different homes, right? And then there was a proposal of $1 million in cash. So we have in total $3.3 million, and that is a lot of money, right? And essentially you're saying that, hey, judge, I'm gonna come back to court. If you let me out, I will come back to court. If I fail to appear at any hearing, then I lose my $3.3 million, right? That's a lot of money to lose by not showing up to court. To address the lack of ties to the community or to the district, he ended up renting a property there. So he rented an apartment or a home that he would end up staying in pending trial. And he proposed, similar to Young Thug and Diddy, the 24/7 security thing, right? So I'm going to have security guards guarding my place 24/7. They're going to ensure that no one who is not authorized to come to my place comes in, and ensure that I don't leave, right? And so these are things that you're asking the judge to take into consideration and say, hey, these conditions are sufficient in order to ensure that I'm going to come to court. I'm not just going to leave and skip town, right? One of the other things that they emphasize, and this is what you often want to propose to the judge or present to the judge, are the positive aspects of your character. And so they provided evidence of his philanthropic efforts and, his donations, right? So you want to be able to show, hey, my client's a good person. He's not the type of person who would do something like this, or he's the kind of person that you can trust because of some of the good things that he's done in his community, right? Furthermore, he had a bunch of support, right? So there were over 30 people that showed up to this detention hearing, including, family, he had friends, and he had representatives from Sony Music. And this is a positive thing because, everybody knows why they're there, right? Everybody knows that you're facing criminal charges. They know that you're in jail. You're trying to get out of jail. And so they're showing that they believe in you. They vouch for your character and they want to see what's best for you, right? And it almost goes without saying that your friends and family would show up to these things. But when you have people from your professional world show up, I think that means even more, especially, if you have a boss or a supervisor. You have coworkers coming in to say, speak of your good character and say how good of a worker you are and all this stuff. That's going to increase the likelihood that if you're released, that you're going to show back up to court, right? And so, the prosecutor, interestingly enough, ended up flipping this and basically saying, hey, all these people that he has coming to court for him, that just shows how powerful and influential he is. And it shows that he has significant resources, right? So, being able to put up the millions of dollars for bond means that you have this type of money at your disposition in order to do exactly what it is that you're charged with, right? Because the average person is not going to have the money to put out a hit on somebody, right? To be able to pay, whether it's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands that you were willing to pay to get somebody killed, the average person just doesn't have those resources at their disposal. So the prosecution had flipped what should be a positive thing into a negative thing. And that's exactly what the prosecution says their case is about. It's a young man who's rich and famous and powerful, and he's been able to leverage all three in order to perpetuate violence and has carried out deadly consequences. And, this is where Lil Durk's own actions basically come back to haunt him. I mean, just before he was apprehended, he was booking international flights, presumably to shake the feds, right? And if they, the idea is if they hadn't caught Lil Durk, then he'd probably be somewhere halfway around the globe right now and not coming back to the jurisdiction, right? From the judge's perspective, I can't trust you to get out of custody and come back to court. I just can't do that. And so regarding the danger to the community analysis, we have to look at the seriousness of the offense, right? And so he's being accused of essentially putting out a hit on Quando Rondo. And when it comes to, conspiracy to commit murder or attempted murder and things of that nature, it doesn't really get much more serious than that, right? And so when you have murder charges, I mean, the vast majority of people are going to have to stay in custody pending their case. And for the purposes of bond, the judge essentially has to accept the prosecution's allegations as true. And so prosecutors allege that Lil Durk used his resources in order to have Quando Rondo killed. And again, it just doesn't get much more serious than that. They say he take it a step further by essentially monetizing the killing by putting it in a rap. And so we've all heard that news clip where you see Quando Rondo screaming out, "No, no," and Lil Durk had put that in a song. And so they're saying not only are you responsible for the death, but you are further exploiting that by monetizing it. And I'm sorry, it's just cold, right? I mean, that heartbreaking moment of seeing a young man mourning the death of his loved one, and then seeing somebody exploit that and put it in music is just another level of depravity. And this is just where it gets nasty for Lil Durk, because now there are separate allegations of yet another murder out in Chicago, right? And so Lil Durk's own brother Dante ended up getting shot and killed outside of a nightclub in 2021. And the allegations from that case are that Lil Durk essentially offered money to take out whoever was responsible for killing his brother. Stephon Mack ended up getting killed outside of a youth center. There's already been 2 people charged with his death, and I don't think it's been determined yet whether Lil Durk's actually going to be charged in connection with that, but prosecutors are essentially saying that Lil Durk was responsible for putting that hit out as well. So at this point, these are just allegations, right? None of this has been proven in court, but If this is true, then this is a classic example of the notion that, money doesn't change who you are. It just turns up the volume, right? It turns up the volume on who you already were. And so, if these allegations are true, it paints Lil Durk as a violent, vengeful person who just simply won't tolerate disrespect or won't allow moves to be made on people that he loves without him, getting revenge, right? He's not somebody that you want to ultimately cross. And so the judge found that, hey, Lil Durk, you have significant resources. You have the ability to flee. You've used your money, your power, your influence in order to endanger people that you perceive as a threat. And so there's yet another saying, right? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And, Lil Durk has essentially demonstrated that he's a dangerous person. He's a violent individual. And so the judge is going to find, hey, I can't release you back to the community. I don't think you're going to come back to court, right? You're going to flee the jurisdiction, never come back. And if I let you out, then I'm putting lives at risk and I just can't afford to do that. And so you got to stay in custody. And so let me know your thoughts. Do you think Lil Durk should have had an opportunity to get out on bail, or did the judge make the right decision? How do you see his criminal case playing out? Do you see him beating these charges, or might Lil Durk spend the rest of his life in prison? Well, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, show me some love, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.